My pleasure to welcome to the show New Zealand First MP Tanya Unkovich. Tanya, kia ora, thank you for your time today.
Hello, Andrew. Always good to be here.
As we're heading towards Easter, who would have thought a few years ago that this would be what God has called you to do? I mean, you've worn many different hats as an author and a coach and somebody who has inspired many people over the years, and you've been a regular contributor to shows that I've done on Rhema. But that God took you in the direction of standing for Parliament, was that a surprise to you, Tanya?
Well, I've learned that nothing is a surprise when it comes to God. You know, they say if you want to make God laugh, make a plan, right?
Yeah.
So nothing surprises me anymore. But I must admit, this isn't something that I had on my wish list growing up.
Yeah, and when it came to, I suppose, hearing a prompting and a calling, would that be the way you describe it? That there was a spiritual aspect to what led you to put yourself forward to be an MP?
Yeah, I would say that because once I had this desire burning inside, I made the decision very quickly. I'm one of these people that makes big decisions very quickly, but
Yep.
whether to buy a pair of shoes or not, no, it takes me ages. But this decision came so quickly and it felt right so deeply. I knew that it was the path.
Mm.
And then the doors just opened.
Yeah. And honestly, it was always a bit of a long shot, you know. There are people who have had political ambitions their whole life that never make it. There are people that run for Parliament year after year and have never been a sitting MP. But for you, there's a touch of the miraculous on your story.
It absolutely was. And even on the night, I really did just scrape in. It was going between 7 or 8 MPs, and I was number 8 on the list. So, but I just surrendered even on that final outcome that night. Even when it went down to 7, I thought, your will be done.
Yeah.
And, but look, I just trust. But I'll tell you what really helped me is my coaching background,
Mm-hmm.
is knowing that when you put thought into something and a deep desire to serve
Yeah.
and surrender, then the doors will open, whatever they look like.
Mm.
So that surrender was a big part of this journey for me.
You have to take your own advice in that regard. It's one thing giving other people advice of saying, hey, you keep on going, have faith. But on that night, on election night, the numbers came in. Tanya Unkovich wasn't an MP. How are you feeling at that point?
Well, it went yes, no, yes, no. But at the end of the night, it was yes.
Mm.
But because I was just scraped in, it wasn't until the special votes came in a couple of weeks later did I feel safe.
Yeah.
But on that night, it was surreal. My
Yeah.
brother stayed awake and he was well, no, actually, it was daytime for
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
in London. And he was so excited. And it was surreal, I must admit. I couldn't believe it. And Grant and I slept for a couple of hours and then we were wide awake. We
Yeah.
just couldn't quite believe it. It will be a night that I will always remember for sure.
That process of getting your hopes up and thinking, yep, this is happening, and then go, oh, maybe it's not happening. Oh, yes, maybe it is happening. It just sounds emotionally exhausting.
And, I remember the night as we were watching the results come through. I remember how at peace I felt when it went down to number 7 and I went, oh, I'm not in.
Okay.
I actually felt peace, so I just trusted Andrew, believe it or not. It's hard to believe, I know, but I just trusted to that level.
Yeah. In terms of motivation to being involved with politics, yes, there's a sense of calling for you, but I think most MPs, regardless of what political party they're involved with or regardless of their faith background or not, would say that they want to become an MP to make a difference. What type of change did you want to bring, Tanya?
As you were saying that, I've always reflected on what gives me the most joy in my work, even in my writing. And I always knew God had a path for me to bring people back to a place of peace, to get people out of suffering, whether it be a group of people or an individual.
Yep.
And I just knew that this was one way to have a larger platform to help people out of suffering. Now, because of the political the way it was in New Zealand for a few years, I knew of a lot of people who were suffering. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
Tanya, you can stand on the sideline and moan, or you can get into the arena and help do something about it to help these people out of suffering. And that was what drove me, this desire to help mankind.
And hey, sorry, Tanya, but now you're an MP. If we don't like the government, it's your fault. Well, at least in part. It's not all
Yeah.
on you in that regard. Is there pressure in that space though? Because
Yes.
you are in a position of responsibility. You can influence change in policy. The people that you're talking about, these people that you know that are suffering, that is a lot of pressure to carry on a daily basis.
It is. I've been given big shoulders, and I take my own advice and I go, okay, 1 week at a time, a
Yeah.
sitting week at a time, or one day at a time. And that's how I just manage the stress. I make sure that I put that actually at the top of my day, to be honest, is to manage that.
Mm.
You look, and also it's the human condition. We all want to be liked,
Yeah,
don't we?
we
And
do.
we can't please everyone. So you just need to accept that you cannot please everyone. You cannot help everyone. You can just do your absolute best. And I just know I have to give my all. That's the best I can do.
And gosh, talk to us about the atmosphere in Parliament. I mean, listening to or watching some of the parliamentary debates, there's some people that don't hold back, including, of course, Deputy Prime Minister, leader of New Zealand First, Winston Peters. He's certainly not shy in giving it his best shot in parliamentary debate. But some of that can get quite personal. Some of that can get, I imagine, feel like you're being attacked personally. How does that feel for you, Tanya?
Well, during debates, when I've actually stood up and given debates or spoken on a piece of legislation, there have been some attacks towards me, which I've found very unprofessional.
Yep.
But this is where my faith comes in. I just go, okay, Tan, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I kid you not. That's what goes through my head.
Yeah.
And I just remember, who am I speaking for? I'm here to be a voice for those who don't have a voice. And yes, it's going to upset some people on the other side, but it just makes me go even harder and raise my voice even more for those who feel silenced. So that is the strength I gain. It's not pleasant. You really do need to have a thick skin. The leader, Winston Peters, has an incredibly thick skin, and he is just so polished in the way he does it. It's not only masterful, but also hilarious to watch.
With a twinkle in his eye and a smirk on his face, often.
Yes.
It is very entertaining when Winston is in the house. You talked about the spiritual aspect of it. Does that set you up as a bit of a target in some ways? Because, as I say, people come to Parliament for different reasons. Not everybody shares the same political or spiritual perspective. In fact, some people seem to be quite antagonistic against faith and Christianity in particular. Has that been your lived experience, Tanya?
Well, look, I do know that on social media I get attacked a bit. I don't go out and read it, but people tell me, and there's a little bit of that going on. I'm sure there is some conversation about the fact that I openly express my faith. But look, I think I mentioned this to someone the other day. If Jesus stopped at every man that threw stones at him on his journey, he would never have gone on to help the millions that he did. And so I think like that, Tanya, you just have to catch the arrows and stand up for all of those people who want you to do this. There are thousands and thousands of Christians out there who want representation and a voice for them. So I just stand for them.
Some people would say, though, you don't need to be so overt about it. And I know that there are people in the House, I'm not going to name names on it, who would say, well, yeah, I'm a Christian, but that's a private matter. I'm not going to make that, that's not going to influence who I am as a politician. That's something I do privately or spiritually. Is there a temptation to perhaps compartmentalize, to go, okay, I have a relationship with Jesus, but I'm not going to bring that into my parliamentary career?
Well, I don't believe I tend to do it a lot, but the last week, for example, I did, when I spoke on a bill to do with the sale of alcohol on Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Christmas Day. So I openly shared my faith. I openly talked about the need for sacredness in these days. So that was an example where I unashamedly did that. It's not something I would go out there and wave the flag all the time with, but look, when you and I have interviews or anything like that, I openly say to people, I have a faith, and that is it is what gets me through my life and has done. So why on earth would I hide that?
But also, I mean, you have taken a stand on pro-life issues, and you've hosted people at Parliament who have quite specific Christian views that would not be respected by other politicians, and perhaps maybe openly derided. You've taken a stand on issues that are important to you, even from a faith perspective.
Yes, 100%. And I need to be absolutely authentic and be myself when I show up in Parliament. I'm not going to stand there and pretend I don't believe in this or that, whatever the issue is. I have to be me.
Yep.
And if I don't show up, then people are going to say she's not authentic. So you do have to be your true self. That's what I've got to do, or else why else am I there? So yeah.
And your true self includes your faith. Just wanting to circle back, because, I mean, interesting piece of legislation, Easter just ahead of us now. We're talking about Easter trading, particularly the sale of alcohol. Talk to us about that bill. How did that go? How's it looking for the future, Tanya?
Well, there were actually two bills, one of them just before Christmas, which was to open up full trading on Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And I spoke to that bill, and it was a conscience vote, and I said no to that one. Last week, we actually had this other one, which was the sale. They were both members' bills. So this one is a members' bill also, and it's to do with the sale of alcohol on Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Christmas Day, and Anzac Day. So when I stood up and gave my 5-minute contribution as to why I would be voting no against it, I openly shared, for me, the importance of the sacredness of those days for those of us in the Christian calendar. And it was quite humorous, actually, because a lot of MPs were all standing up, and it's as if they were confessing they were Catholics. And so I stood up and did the same, so it was very comical. But it was important for me to say, no, I really want to value family. And this is one way. Why can't we just, for 4 days of the year, say that it will be peaceful and quiet, abstinence, fasting, whatever it is that you want to look at? So I really unashamedly went down that route. And a lot of people have responded very nicely to that.
It's good to hear, although I do understand that bill passed its first reading. How's it looking? Is it likely to become law despite some of the protests?
Well, what's going to happen now, it will go into select committee process. So this will be the opportunity for the public to now have their say. So I do encourage people to do that with every bill, in fact. Have your say, and you can either have a written or an oral submission. So do that. And then the select committee will go through the process of what has the public said and what can we do here. So then it will go to second reading, and that's when further decisions will be made. So there is time to have your say.
And I think this is an important part of it, because, it's past its first reading, but now, I mean, just as you've taken a stand on this issue, there's an opportunity for other New Zealanders to have the same. We've just had the Treaty Principles Bill, of course, record number of submissions to that one, but to have discussions on bills, even if they don't make it, an important part of the democratic process, a way of people being able to engage?
Absolutely. And I encourage people to do that. So often people think, oh, why on earth would my little opinion matter? But it really does matter. As someone who's sitting there listening to the submissions, I take them into account. Sometimes I mention some of them in the House when I'm doing the second reading on a bill. So please make your submission.
And
it does matter.
Especially in things where you think, well, gosh, we haven't got the numbers on this one. This one's, this bill that I want to pass isn't going to pass. But I suppose taking a stand anyway, standing up against the odds and saying, well, regardless of whether or not this passes or doesn't pass, being true to who you are, pushing back anyway, even if the legislation doesn't go the way in which you voted with your conscience.
I agree 100%, because that will give you the courage to do it again when another piece of legislation comes through. So, look, this is why I came into Parliament, to be a voice and encourage others to be a voice as well. So do it.
Is it different markedly than what you suspected it would be? Because I just can't keep my head around how busy you are. You're one of the busiest people that I know, I think, with all of your responsibilities and your portfolios and select committees and everything. Are there times when it's just overwhelming? It's difficult to have the strength, the energy to keep going?
I had zero expectations on what it was going to be like, which it has been good, to be honest. On days when I feel physically fatigued, that can be hard, I'm not going to lie, because we go into Parliament Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we sit till 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes it's midnight when we're in urgency. So
Yep.
It's not unusual for me to have 8 hours sleep over 2 nights. And then you have to get up and do a 12-hour day. So it is physically demanding, but that's where my coaching comes in. 24 hours at a time. Tanya, you can do anything for this 24 hours. And that's what helps me get through, you know.
Is it a tough place for women in particular? I mean, of course, things have changed a lot, and there's in some aspects there's more women in politics than there's ever been in the history of New Zealand. But is there an extra burden to carry as a woman in politics, do you think?
I personally don't feel it. I know that others say that they feel it. I personally haven't experienced it by being a woman. So that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But I also, really disciplined with my mindset and ensuring I'm in that state of Tanya who feels really strong.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'm sure that helps me.
Yeah, and hey, I suppose having that attitude instead of looking for an opportunity to play the victim, as it were.
100%.
Yeah.
I think having a strong identity is invaluable in this role, in any role, actually. So that's where I use my techniques of, having that strong personal foundation of who I am. And I'm sure that's what helps me.
It's something we were talking about beforehand, but just really wanted to talk about the spiritual battle. That there is almost an aspect of spiritual warfare. The stand that you're taking, the bills that you're supporting. Yes, it's happening at a political level, but there is also a spiritual dynamic that's happening here. A bit of a spiritual battlefield, Tanya.
It does feel that way at times, because I sometimes think, oh my God, how could that person have said that?
Yeah.
And then I go, Tan, just be at peace. You don't know what else is going on here at play. So it does cross my mind.
Yeah.
And, but look, thankfully, I've got a strong faith, and I go, no matter what, Tanya, you have absolute faith and belief that God's carrying you here, and keep moving forward. So I feel so grateful that I've got that.
Yeah. And I know for people watching this as well, for people that support you and follow you, a lot of people praying for you. What can we pray for you and for other politicians? How can we support our leaders in prayer as we're called to do in the Bible?
That we always do the right thing. That no matter what, you do the right thing. And I've always had that in the back of my head, always do the right thing. What is your intention behind saying and taking this action? Always check in on yourself to ensure that your motives and intention are good and just and fair.
I remember listening to your maiden speech actually in Parliament, and you're quite overt in your faith in that regard, and yes, some wonderful phrases there. It was something that we've seen even over the last week, some MPs that have been in the House for a period of time, some of them stepping down, and they'll be giving their valedictory speeches in the months ahead. Do you ever think about that? I mean, it's kind of like thinking about the eulogies at your funerals in some ways, but don't want to get too morbid on it. But what you would like to be able to say at the end of your political career, as perhaps God is calling you into your next adventure?
Gosh, to know that I served, actually, to be able to stand there and know that I've made a difference in the lives of individuals. And I can say that I feel that already with some of the people that I've served. I know that deeply from the correspondence I get. So that that pleases me. So to be able to do that is enough for me to know that I have served, and whether it be one person or 100,
Yeah.
to know that in some way I have helped change their lives.
Hey, wonderful aspirational goals in that regard. Just if I may, personally, as I say, we are coming towards the Easter season, and I know Parliament's taking a bit of a break. You'll have the opportunity to spend more time with friends and family. What does Easter mean to you? What does Easter weekend look for you and your family, Tanya?
It's big. It's always been big in my family with my mother, and we were always, often I'd go to mass on a Thursday night, Friday at 3 p.m., and then we would have this big dish, Croatian fish dish.
Yeah.
And Sunday we're in the kitchen baking Easter bread, and then Sunday we're at mass again, and the bellies are full by the end of the weekend, Andrew. That's one thing I could be sure of.
That's very good. And well, hey, I do hope that that this Easter season is a good one. As I say, a bit of a break for Parliament, but actually, just because you're not in the house doesn't mean you're not working. I know, very busy working on a range of portfolios and areas that you're working in. We pray that God will give you the strength to do the work He has called you to do. Tanya, thank you so much for your faithfulness, for your response to God's calling, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
It is, yeah, look, it's my pleasure, and God bless you all, and have a wonderful Easter.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe, and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.